Good morning, everybody. I will be sharing. Okay. First off, I do just want to say thank you. I really appreciate that, we're able to be here again for another year. Last year was my first year presenting to all of you, so I'm really happy that we were able to return again this year. So I will be jumping into the Border Angels presentation. So what is Border Angels? Border Angels is a nonprofit organization that advocates for human rights, immigration reform, and social justice with a special focus on issues related to the US-Mexican border. And now some background and history. The Border Angels was established in 1986 by Enrique Morones. It was originally set up to provide support to the migrants living in the canyons of San Diego County. Since then, it has expanded to conduct humanitarian work for migrants along the entire U.S.-Mexico border region. The Border Angels now also serve the San Diego County immigration population through various outreach programs, which I will speak about today. And it's also very important to note that years of poor economic policies and immigration policies have created a situation where we're still seeing that people are continuing to risk their lives in the search of a better life here in the United States. So since the start of NAFTA on January 1st, 1994, there has been a steady increase in the militarization of the U.S. And that militarization looked like an increase of border patrol agents directly on the field, as well as an increase of technology that's been used to detect migrants that are crossing. That technology looked like use of infrared technology to even detect individuals crossing at night, by detecting their body heat, as well as expanding the border wall. Currently, within just the past couple of years, we've seen that the border wall has increased to 30 feet high. And even though the height of the wall has increased, we're still seeing that individuals are continuing to cross and risk their lives jumping over the. Another policy is Operation Gatekeeper, which was implemented in October 1st of that same year. And under this policy, what Border Patrol and really, the government assumed was that by making it more difficult for individuals to cross, uh, by pushing them through the desert or making individuals even navigating past through the ocean, that these migrants would actually stop. We saw the exact opposite. We saw that individuals were actually seeking these more dangerous because oftentimes they're cheaper than other routes that are safer, easier to navigate. So clearly, this policy, even though it had a goal in mind, it really did not. So since Operation Gatekeeper, an estimated 11,000 people have lost their lives while making this journey. One reason is extreme heat. So here in San Diego, where we're at, we do see temperatures get into the triple digits at times. People are still crossing during that temperature. Uh, I know just last year when I was doing a water drop with a student group, we actually saw temperatures in 120 degrees. It was super humid. I couldn't understand how people were still crossing during those temperatures. Uh, and also, people sometimes assume that during the winter it's a lot easier. It's not. During the winter, we see freezing cold temperatures here in this area, and unfortunately, we have seen different cases where individuals have passed away due to hypothermia because they are not prepared. Another reason is lack of food and water. Individuals can only carry so much before it gets too much for them. People get tired depending on how long the trek is for each individual, and which is why it's so important for us to go out and leave water gallons out in the desert in these areas to make sure that we're able to assist anybody in any way that. And lastly, the overall perilous nature of the trip has unfortunately cost many people their lives. Again, people may not be well prepared to make this journey. This trip is very, very difficult, and oftentimes people are just not prepared with the attire that they're wearing, whether it's shoes. We have seen that even volunteers that have joined us, their shoes have actually melted due to the high heat in the desert. Many times, many of these individuals just are tired, and that's when they'll actually start leaving items behind us. So Border Angels' focus is on reducing the number of fatalities and supporting lives. hoping to improve their circumstances. So our mission is to promote a culture of love through advocacy, education, by creating a social consciousness and engaging in direct action to defend the rights of migrants and refugees. Here you will see a couple pictures. So this is actually from a student group that came out with us for a water drop. And then here is a picture of us taking donations out to one of the shelters that we support in Tijuana. So our current program. People are often more familiar with our water drop program, which you can see a picture here. Here's our day labor outreach program, our shelter aid program, our Familias Reunidas or Reuniting Families Bond program. And then we also have our Volviendo a Casa program or Returning Home program, and then our education program. And I will begin with our water drops. So through our water drops, volunteers are able to join us and trek into the desert and place water, as well as other life-saving supplies along these migration paths, in hopes of preventing further deaths at the US-Mexico border. So the way that we find these routes is by looking at death maps. Like the name states, these maps are where, unfortunately, remains of individuals who have crossed are found. And by looking at these death maps, we're able to visit these different routes and see what's left behind, what evidence is there that people have. So that's how we also see, which routes are more heavily traveled. So the items that we'll typically find along these routes are water bottles. They're typically consumed with Mexican branding. We will also see clothing that's left behind. Clothing can look like shirts, pants, shoes is really something that we find a lot, as well as backpacks. And we usually find these clothes that's left behind closer to the freeway, just because the coyote or the smuggler, the person that's leading individual, will already have somebody at the endpoint, which is typically near a freeway, to pick them up. So individuals will often have a change of clothes, a clean change of clothes in their backpack to still change into. So that way, if they are to be stopped, or if Border Patrol see them, they aren't as easily able to be spotted. Individuals that are crossing, they want to make sure once they're already here that they're able to assimilate as quickly as possible. So the reason that we leave water gallons out in the desert is because the main cause of death for individuals crossing is dehydration. Again, water is very heavy, especially if you're doing a route that can take weeks and weeks and weeks. That's actually one of the first items that we see that individuals will consume the quickest, or if it's just too heavy for them, they'll leave it. Which is why we leave these water gallons. Along with this program, we do visit the desert at least once a month. Currently, our volunteer water drop program runs on the second Saturday, and every month we do cycle through these different routes. Visit again, making sure that we're able to check if the items that we're leaving behind are consumed, or if we need to replenish this route. 2021 has been the deadliest year on record for border crossings, and 2023 had record. Again, like I mentioned earlier, last year in June or July, we were seeing a high heat advisory. We were out there at noon and we were already seeing triple-digit numbers. So this is something that's very difficult, but as well as something that's very important for us to take groups out to be exposed to these realities, as our goal is always to humanize and to really expose individuals to what the reality of our migrant brothers and sisters are facing, making their way to the United States. And here are a couple pictures. So here you can see our team out at a water drop, and then here is actually a group of volunteers that we were leading through a water drop as well. I know oftentimes people have a misconception that the desert is very easy to navigate, flat land, but we're often having to go through canyons, as well as through different brushes, I guess, bushes and other items. We always advise individuals to wear hiking boots, to dress in layers, to have a hiking backpack, to be able to even have water for themselves. And that's something that many individuals who are crossing, whether they're paying somebody to cross them, they don't have that preparation that we are able to provide. come out with. And something that we always share with our volunteers as well is that it's a privilege to be out there, to be that prepared. Many times, there's people that are crossing who aren't prepared, who don't have hiking boots, who don't have long pants that are able to protect them from the different branches that we're hitting along the way. Um, and another big reality for us that many migrants don't have is that we are able to make it safely back home. We're able to make it back to our cars and AC and know that we'll be fine by the end of the day. But for many individuals, that's not a reality for them. And here are a couple more pictures. So here's a water gallon. So with these water gallons, we always make sure to tape the tops of the gallons, as with high heat, these gallons will explode out in the desert. And we also make sure to use neon tape so individuals are able to also see these gallons and these items that we're leaving behind us. And then here is another picture of the hikes that we do. So as you can see, we are having to be hands-free, something that we always let people know, so, make sure that they are able to carry items in their backpacks. So that way we're able to, catch ourselves if we do trip or if we just need to hold on to anything as well. And when we do these water drops, we do know that oftentimes people assume that we're just leaving trash out in the desert, but we also make sure to clean up after the items that we leave behind. Because again, we are aware that we're leaving gallons as well as other items. And then here is a picture of items that they have been consumed. So here are the water gallons in the back, and then the pop-off cans that we request for anybody that joins us to also provide. Something that might be a little obvious, but we always request pop-off cans because we don't want to assume that a migrant is crossing with a can opener. We want to make sure that the items that we're leaving behind are as easily consumable as possible. So next, I'm going to touch on a different policy, Title 42. So Title 42 was a Trump-era policy that used the pandemic as a pretext to expel refugee families and asylum seekers under the guise of protecting public health. Many public health officials actually spoke out against this policy, claiming it was doing the exact something that we were seeing in detention centers was that there was actually a big uptake of COVID cases because the individuals detained were not given access to washing stations. They didn't have hand sanitizer. They didn't even have face masks. We would have individuals contacting us saying, "Oh, I want to be able to donate these items. Like, are we able to go out and donate those?" And unfortunately, we did have to let them know that we didn't even have access to the detention centers during this time. So if people were testing COVID positive, they unfortunately did not have a space to isolate. And again, that's why we did see a big increase of COVID cases in the detention centers. So with the end of Title 42 last year, we did see that the Border Patrol returned to pre-pandemic rules for enforcing immigration laws under Title 8. And under Title 8, individuals that are caught crossing unlawfully, they do or they are subject to a 5 to 10 year ban. Under Title 42, we did not see that that was implemented. So that is a big difference between these two policies. And with the transition to the CBP One app, this is now the main way for individuals to seek asylum in the United States. And now this application has been seen as problematic as it is an application on your smartphone. With this application, we have seen the individuals who are of darker skin complexion, their features are not being read. So the application will actually say that we can't move on because we just can't read that, you're a person, and their pictures are just not seen as being reliable. Another thing was that it assumes access to reliable connection to Wi-Fi throughout the whole time that they're making their trek to the United States. I was actually just out there yesterday volunteering with a group that does work in the desert as well. And I lost signal, and I have a smartphone. Now, for individuals who don't have a smartphone and that are losing signal, that can cause issues in their process of how they're moving forward in the application. Another issue, again, is compatible technology. Many folks do not have access to a smartphone. Oftentimes, they will be using a lot older phone, and they aren't even able to open it in their phone. Lastly, another issue that we were seeing was error codes in English. So even though the application may have been translated to their respective language that they were able to understand, error codes that they were receiving were still in English. So even then, if they were receiving an error code, they were not able to understand it because it was in a language that. Oh, with the end of Title 42, we did see something that I I know that a lot of people actually aren't aware of, which are these open air detention sites out in the desert. So these open air detention sites are unofficial detention centers. What we saw with the end of Title 42 is that we were actually receiving a high influx of calls at our office. People were letting us know that they were out in the desert and that they needed support. We were given at first the number of about 200 migrants out in the desert. When we got out there, we saw closer to 500 to 700 migrants out without any shelter and without any care from Border Patrol. What we were being told was that Border Patrol was only providing a small little water bottle as well as a small Nutri-Grain bar for the individual. So we were able to do a call out for our volunteers and our supporters to provide donations, and we were thankfully able to take water gallons, sunscreen. We were able to prepare lunches for them as well. It was something that was very, very sad to see. Many of the individuals that were out there were actually using their own shirts to create makeshift hats of protection from the sun for themselves. A lot of them were clearly dehydrated, super chapped lips. They looked disoriented, and unfortunately, Border Patrol was not doing anything. The resources that we were able to provide a lot of times did fall on nonprofits like us to be able to provide those resources to them. We were also seeing that individuals were actually using any trash that they had as well to create little makeshift shelters. I'm not sure if you can see it here in this picture, but people were using any sort of trash to be able to create a shelter that would protect them from the sun and the wet. So migrants were enduring inhumane conditions, extreme weather, a lack of medical care for people out there. And we did see migrants from all over. I know oftentimes because we are located in San Diego, people assume that the only migrants that we see are people from Mexico, but that's actually the exact opposite. We see individuals from all over the world. Here at these detention centers, we've seen people from Colombia, from Venezuela, from China, from Russia, as well as Ukraine, and even from African states as well. So it's something that, again, migration is a global issue. It's something that's not just one person, but we see many, many individuals from all over the world continuing to risk their lives in hopes of a better life. So our next program that I'm going to touch on is our day labor outreach program. So the term day labor is applied to individuals that search for work in construction and landscaping project-based work. We often see them outside of Home Depots and Lowe's. They're out there from 6 in the morning all the way up until 6 in the afternoon, just waiting. They don't know for sure when their next payday is going to be or when the next day they're going to have work, but they're still out there every single day waiting to see if that day will be the lucky day that they get paid. Fortunately, this community of workers is often subject to discrimination. That discrimination looks like discrimination from employees, as well as security on the locations, even customers. We do know that customers unfortunately have called ICE on these laborers that are out there, assuming that they are undocumented, and unfortunately putting them in a dangerous situation. That discrimination, another form of discrimination that we've seen or that I have seen as well, is security on these sites actually pepper spraying these laborers. These laborers are some of the kindest people that I have had the privilege to work with and to get to know. A lot of them are older folk as well. So it's very disheartening to hear that there's people there that are being hateful to them just because of their status. And again, these laborers are doing work that oftentimes people see as being beneath them. They're doing the work that nobody else wants to do. And I know that's sometimes a big thing that we hear with this population of migrants and immigrants is that they're stealing people's jobs, but they're not stealing people's jobs. They're doing the work that people assume isn't the work that somebody else should be doing. So by being able to go out to these different sites, we are able to engage with them, hear their stories, get to know them, as well as provide food, water, clothes, as well as know your right cards for these individuals. Oftentimes, the lunches that we provide, these laborers let us know that that's their first meal of the day. They won't use any money that they've been able to make for themselves, hoping that they'll be able to send that back to their families and their countries of origin. So something that I always push for students or anybody that I lead out for these various outreach programs is for them to really just even share the name or hear the labor, share the name back. That might be something that sounds really small, but it's honestly something that goes a long way because that might be the first time that that labor is able to share a little bit of themselves to somebody else. I know oftentimes these laborers are very appreciative of us just even being out there and just getting to hear how they're doing. It's always something, it always really warms my heart to hear them even just recognize me and, say hi to me just by saying hi, Emma, and, seeing that we're creating that partnership and that collaboration with one another and seeing that, we're really being seen as a resource and not just like individuals that show up one day and then don't show up. So I really appreciate that are out there and that are continuing to support this program as well. So next is our shelter aid program. So through this program, we do have a special budget allocated to assist the different shelters in Tijuana. So through this program, we are able to provide funding for rent, utilities, construction, and growth. So here you can see a couple pictures of some construction that we've been able to help with, as well as some donations we've been able to provide to currently the largest shelter that we do provide support for houses 1,600 migrants. 600 of those migrants are children. And we currently do support 12 shelters, including an LGBTQ space, a Muslim shelter, and a Haitian migrant shelter as well. So during the pandemic, our program actually did have to close because we were able to cross into Tijuana. And this was also a time where, we understood that migrants really needed that. So something that we were able to begin was the Caravan of Love. Through the Caravan of Love, that is an opportunity where volunteers are able to join us and engage with us to visit these different shelters. We will meet at our community center and then caravan down to Tijuana, visiting a respective shelter, and the director will let us know, what specific donations they may need for something that we are very grateful and that we're really happy that we were able to do with the return of the Caravan of Love was have volunteers who joined us to provide any resources or services that they may have to these different communities. So here we have a lady named Karen, who was actually from the Berkeley area, who drove down and was able to provide vision exams to the different migrants at these laborers. It was really sweet to see some migrants line up and get excited for an exam. Even if they knew they had 20/20 vision, their vision was perfectly fine, but they still wanted to feel taken care of. So they still were able to get checked, and for any individual that needed glasses, they were able to get their glasses that same day. And then here we have another volunteer, Christian, who was a barber in Tijuana, and he was able to cut the hair of both adults and females and children as well. And it was just really sweet to see everybody just feel so happy and to have them have that time for self-care for them. At the end of the day, Christian actually let us know that he was also living in a shelter. He was from Venezuela, and he had his appointment that following week to meet with immigration and to be able to go and meet his sponsor up in Las Vegas. So it was a really full circle moment that he understood, what it was like for a migrant to live in a shelter and to provide whatever service he could to individuals as well. Next, I'm going to touch on our Familias Reunidas, or Reuniting Families Bond program. So the past administration's anti-immigrant agenda has resulted in an increase in immigrants and asylum seekers being held in ICE immigrant prisons. So some individuals detained qualify to be released on bond but remain in custody because they cannot afford the high bond amount. Something that's also very important to know when paying bonds, that it does require you to have your residency, so that's your green card, or to be a citizen of the United States. So if individuals do not have access to be able to pay for the high bond amount, or do not have somebody that can pay that bond amount because of their legal status, they will reach out to us. And oftentimes people in these detention centers will actually pass out our phone, and we will have people contacting us that way, just letting us know, oh, I got your phone from somebody else, but I wanted to see if you could also. So we did navigate or activate our network in December 2019, and as of January 2020, we have helped over 220 immigrants. Just this year, I think this year has been very, very good to us because we have been able to post about 3 or 4 more. We've been able to help pay the bonds for 3 or 4 more individuals. And then we have been able to raise over $50,000 from donations, which is something, again, that we are very, very proud of. So the minimum bond amount is $1,500, but many of those who we have helped, we have seen that the minimum is $5,000. We have even seen these bonds set as high as $10,000, and that there really isn't any like one reason as to why somebody's bond is placed higher than another. It really is kind of without explanation. We have even seen people who are first-time crossers who their bonds have been set at a very high. So we do assist those inside the Otay Mesa, Adelanto, and Imperial Regional detention centers here in San Diego. So here is a quick graphic for this program as well. So as you can see, the average time that somebody is spent in detention is a month. The average bond is of $6,289. And then we have been able to help individuals from 27 different countries. And this number is up to 125, if not 126 people freed from detention as well. So next, I'm going to touch on our Volviendo a Casa, or Returning Home program. So it is important to note that all the programs that I have touched on before have been for individuals who have been able to make it to the United States alive. A big reality is, something that we understand, is that oftentimes individuals are able to make it to the United States safely, but there are times where individuals unfortunately lose their lives making the trek to the United States. So with our Volviendo a Casa program, we have been able to help support low-income families working with the respective consulate to be able to return those remains back to that family to be able to lay their family members. So we do help pay funeral expenses and transportation for these families to be able to offer a proper. It's very important to know as well that these are real people. These are humans who had a story, who had a dream, who had a goal in mind. And unfortunately, that dream or that goal cost them their lives. Again, it's very important to know that oftentimes these journeys that individuals take can be very dangerous. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with La Bestia or the Beast, which is a train that takes individuals from southern Mexico all the way up to northern Mexico. And this is a very dangerous form of transportation for individuals. We have seen that people sleeping on top of the train fall off, or they fall asleep and they lose their lives. They aren't able to hold on to the train anymore. Many of these individuals as well that take La Bestia, unfortunately, are decapitated. We have seen individuals have lost limbs making the journey here as well.
Is anybody?
And it's just something that's very heavy.
Hearing?
Here. I'm sorry.
You guys are not having trouble? Nope. Okay. Muddled. Okay. That's a good word. I wrote muddled. So I think she only has one more program after this. And I mean, it's such important work because it's all.
They're having problems hearing you in the.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me, or is it any better?
Say a little more for me.
Is it better, or is it still bad?
I think that may be better, but I can't tell if
I can hear fine, and I'm on Zoom. Yeah, I can hear fine.
Yeah, I have one more slide and then we're done. I'm sorry. Okay, I will just finish real quick. So lastly, I'm just going to touch on our educational program. So At Border Angels, we seek to engage students and community members in different activities, and some of these activities are the following, which are the day labor outreach, our educational water drop, our Chicana Park tour, and our in-person or virtual presentation. And then here are just a couple examples of these different programs that we have. And now what can you do? For one, start a conversation. You just got educated, share a little bit about what you learned today with anybody that you may know. You can host a fundraiser for any donations, physical donations or monetary donations as well. Here with this QR code, you can access our different social media pages to follow and share our posts. And lastly, if you have a skill, use your skill to get involved, whether that's fundraising or whether you're able to cut hair, no pressure, but you're also able to get involved with any skills. And then lastly, donating. You can donate monetarily through our Venmo, our PayPal, or our website, or you can also donate by following us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And our contact information. So we are located in San Diego at the Sherman Heights Community Center. And then here is just a couple contact information as well. So here is my email. And then if you have any general inquiries, please feel free to email admin. And then that's it for me. Thank you.